Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Monday, the 27th of November, 2023. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 closed down 0.8% today to just under 7,000 points. Of the 11 sub-indices, only the tech index rose, while the real estate, consumer discretionary and materials indices all fell sharply. It was a rough day for the big miners. Fortescue Metals Group dropped 2%. BHP was off 1.5%. Rio was down 1.3%. The major banks, with the exception of National Australia Bank, fell sharply, with Commonwealth Bank, Westpac and ANZ all off more than 1%. Aristocrat Leisure was another poor performer, down 2.7%, while WiseTech Global ended up more than 1.5%. In corporate news, lithium and nickel miner IGO fell after the company stood by its decision to appoint Ivan Vella as Chief Executive Officer after investigating the circumstances that led to Rio Tinto sacking him a fortnight ago. Former Business Council Chief Executive Jennifer Westacott has been appointed chair of the $460 million ASX-listed philanthropic vehicle Future Generation Global, and the share price of online cosmetics and makeup retailer Adore Beauty jumped by as much as 25% today after its board said it had knocked back a takeover bid of up to $1.30 a share. Now, it closed up 19% to $1.12 a share. Story number 2, the latest Newspoll from the Australian shows Labor's primary vote falling sharply in recent weeks, and on a two-party preferred basis, the government and opposition are now neck and neck. The poll shows Labor's primary vote falling to 31%, below its election result of 32.6%, as Parliament sits for the final time this year. The coalition's primary vote has lifted a point to 38%, its highest level since the election. The 50-50 reading on a two-party preferred basis is a 4-point turnaround over the past 4 weeks. The Greens continue to poll well, while the Teal independents remain well liked. It comes against a backdrop of 13 interest rate hikes, a cost of living crisis in some parts of the economy, the failed voice referendum, of course, and the High Court decision to overturn indefinite immigration. However, in terms of preferred leader, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese still leads opposition leader Peter Dutton. Story number 3, Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers has appointed British central banker Andrew Houser to be the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia. Mr Houser will be number 2 to new Governor Michelle Bullock, and both are expected to guide the central bank through a raft of changes to be introduced to Parliament this week. That includes the creation of specialist boards for interest rate setting and governance, and refining the bank's inflation and employment mandates. Mr Houser has worked at the Bank of England for 30 years, most recently overseeing the central bank's balance sheet, the UK's foreign exchange reserves, and providing advice on macroeconomics and markets. Story number 4 today, some of Australia's biggest super funds have agreed to invest nearly $30 billion into the United Kingdom for large-scale infrastructure and renewable energy over the next 4 years. The industry super funds have an investment arm, IFM Investors, and IFM has pledged nearly 20 billion Aussie dollars or £10 billion at the UK's Global Investment Summit. In addition, Aware Super, another of the country's biggest super funds, pledged £5 billion of investment in Britain's energy transition, affordable housing, life sciences, innovation, technology and digital infrastructure. The big Aussie super funds need to diversify their growing pots of money. Now, the British and European economies have slowed recently. The UK, in fact, may well be in recession, and the big superannuation funds have obviously identified opportunities in the region. IFM already has a portfolio of British assets, including stakes in 3 airports, a toll road, a water utility, and a telecommunications provider. Finally, story number 5, Israel and Hamas have indicated that the temporary ceasefire in Gaza could be extended beyond tonight to allow for the release of more hostages and prisoners. US President Joe Biden backed the pause, saying it's allowing for the delivery of critically needed aid to Gaza and the recovery of hostages. One of the hostages released over the past 36 hours was a 4-year-old girl, a US-Israeli dual national whose parents were killed by Hamas militants in the October 7 attack on Israel. A 4-day pause brokered by Qatar, which began on Friday, provides for Hamas to release 50 hostages in exchange for 150 Israeli-held prisoners, and for Israel to hold its fire for each day that Hamas frees 10 more captives. That's it for the afternoon report for Monday, the 27th of November, 2023. Don't forget to hit follow on the podcast and find Fear and Greed on LinkedIn, Instagram, X and Facebook. Join Michael Thompson and I tomorrow morning for the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed, the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.